Hello, fellow sewing enthusiasts. I'm Sarah Gunn, author and creator of the fashion sewing blog, Goodbye Valentino. I am a huge tunic lover, and after recently getting an embroidery machine, I've discovered how to adapt embroidered neckline files from websites and software to commercial tunic patterns. To start, you will need an embroidered file downloaded to your machine. I have selected this one. Now, working with my favorite tunic pattern, I'm going to cut a large rectangular piece of fashion fabric, slightly larger than my tunic bodice, and I'm going to go ahead and mark the bodice with a heat-soluble marker. I'm going to mark the bodice right around the shoulders, arms, and neckline. I'm also going to mark my center line at the top and bottom. Next, I'm going to thread trace the center line so it will be marked on both sides of the fabric. Now, depending on what size embroidery hoop you use, you might have to embroider your neckline file in sections. But once it comes out of the hoop, it will look something like this. So the next step is to cut a piece of fashion fabric that matches your tunic bodice, a little bit larger than your embroidery design. I've interfaced this fabric with a lightweight fusible knit interfacing, and I am placing it over the design on the top side of the fabric. I'm going to secure it with just a few pins on the front. Just to hold it in place. Then I'm going to flip it over to the back. Okay. Now, you don't have to pin it. You don't have to use too many pins. All right, so this inner neckline is going to serve as our stitching guide, and I'm going to go ahead and take it to the machine and stitch around the inside of the neckline. I'm stitching in a contrast thread just so you can get an idea of where the stitching falls. I'm using an all-purpose polyester thread, which is perfect for necklines. I'm using an edge stitching foot to help me guide around the neckline. Pivot. So as you can see, we're just following the embroidered neckline. Now, once that's done, it's time to remove the excess fabric. And I am just going to snip away right up against the stitching line. The fabric. And this is creating your neckline. Now, flip it over and flip it over, and you have a finished neckline. Now you'll need to press this, of course, and I've got a piece that's been pressed right here. So you can finish your facing in one of two ways. If you don't have a sheerness factor to your fabric, go ahead and just trace the shape of your neckline around your facing. Cut, finish with a serger, or you can turn in the edges. And I like this because it neatly covers all of the stitches on the back, and it's very comfortable against the skin. Now, if your fabric is sheer, you don't want a facing that's going to be behind the stitching because it will detract from your nice design. So what you'll need to do is cut your facing down to 1 inch, just following the inside, the inner neckline. Turn the outside edge and then slip stitch into place. Okay, so your neckline is finished, and now it's time to cut out the bodice. Now, because I have thread stitched my center line, I can match everything up pretty easily. Here's the center line of the pattern. I want to match it up with the center line, the thread tracing. All right, your placement can be a little bit tricky because I like to catch just a piece of the embroidery in the seam allowance. I don't want it just floating on top of my tunic. So it looks like I'm going to have to sacrifice just a little bit of the stitching. All right, so I've kind of marked my, let's see, we want this to be nice and even, center line. Yep. All right. Okay. Let's get it pinned. All right, I'm going to pin at the shoulders, secure with some pattern weights. Pin. And now it's ready to cut. So what we will end up with is a piece that's ready to assemble, a front bodice that's ready to assemble with a finished neckline and an embroidered surface. Okay. And it's almost like magic when you lift that pattern piece off of your fabric. There we go. All right. And here we have it, your front bodice with an embroidered neckline, a finished neckline, all ready for assembly.